late to the party, but did anyone go to Industry Giants this year?
Um,
Last year?
yeah, I didn't go. I know that a few of, like, I'm sure Dan was there. He may have had something to do with it, but yeah. So I'm not sure. Industry Giants is a big deal, but I have not gotten myself into it yet. So, I know.
You've never been?
Never been to Industry Giants. Who is here has been to Industry Giants besides Mary? Man, we need to figure that out. So this is the Dallas After Effects user group, and we are so excited that you are here for our September meeting. We have one more meeting this year. We'll meet in October, and then we take November and December off, just because we don't want to step on the holidays. And tonight we're going to be looking at shape layers and doing some stuff with that in 3D. So if you are, if you're online, which many of you are these days, then we have the After Effects user group presence on YouTube. You can get to that, I believe, just by searching Dallas After Effects user group. I'm working on enough subs to get us an actual URL that, like, a personalized URL. And I had it under my, we'd been posting and streaming under my personal account for a long time, and there were some subs, but when I switched over, we just got to rebuild subs. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. But also there are a ton of videos in the playlist here, all the way back to, I don't even know how old that is, but we've gone way back a few years even on there. So check those out, a lot of good content. And if you have not joined the group on the Facebook page, please do that. We actually do have a personal URL, groups/Dallas AEUG, and we'd love to have you be part of the group. So now let's talk about shape layers. Who uses shape layers? Anybody use shape layers? Okay, good. No, not yet. Shape layers are cool and powerful, but even more maybe than you think they are. They are very cool. So we're just going to talk about some various things you can do with shape layers. This is where you find them. It's under the shape tool up here. You also get your masks from up here if you're a hotkey user.
We're going to be talking about how to get in shape.
That's right. Good shapes. So your Q will toggle through your shapes, and if you just double click on a shape, you can get a shape in your comp that is the width and height of your comp. If you do a circle, let's delete that. If you do or rather ellipse, all right, that's not that. Let's go here, do an ellipse, and I'll just double click. There we go. And so it is the bounds of the comp. Same with all the others. This is the bounds of the comp. It doesn't look like it, but it is because it doesn't have this point down here. If you want to draw out a shape and just kind of arbitrarily draw your shape in here, you actually are drawing it off center from your anchor point. So if you're going to rotate, you're going to rotate around that guy. Now you can center up your anchor point and center up your shape with some hotkeys. So you do Option, Command, Home. It centers up your anchor point, and then Command, Home centers up your layer. Okay, so Option, Command, or rather Alt, Windows maybe on the Windows machine, and Home, and then Command or Control, Home, like that. you're lined up. Now you also have the ability to twirl this guy down and see all of the options for your shape layer. You can resize here. Just make that a square. Lock it back. So there we go. You can even change your position. When you do that, you're changing the position based on your anchor point. Now, if you don't like it, you can center it up again like that. But your position is still in a different place. Now, the reason that that is interesting, I think, is because you are giving yourself the ability to have two different anchor points. I'm not saying you would ever want two different anchor points, but you can have two different anchor points. So if we were to put an expression in here, let's do 360 divided by 5 times time. And what this does, some of you may already know this, but 360, that's our units. 5, that's our seconds. And we add the times time here, so it'll multiply through the, or use time through the timeline. So 360 units, which are the degrees here, over 5 seconds times time. That just means over 5 seconds, we will rotate one full turn, okay? So now let's control click, copy that expression, and we'll do the rotation. I hit R to twirl rotation, option click, and oh, no, I just need to just like that and paste, and then put in my expression. So now if I hit my RAM preview, you can see that it's rotating on each of those anchor points. Right? Does that make sense?
Oh, the twists and turns.
All right, so I can even do minus time here. See what happens now. So it's just negating the rotation, but also kind of like window washing. All right, now let's a little bit about our anchor points. I'm going to get rid of those expressions. Now, if I hold Command and I twirl, I'll get all of my options here, just so you know that that exists. I don't need my transforms currently. Let's see, I'll put my position back and then recenter this guy like that. I can change the roundness of a square, so I also have a rounded rectangle, but I can change the roundness here if I already have a rectangle in. And I can change my stroke. I can do that up here. Something fun I learned from John Ruiz a few years ago is holding Option or Alt, and you click in here, and it cycles through your solid color, gradient, linear gradient, radial gradient, and transparent. Same with the stroke. And you can see it's changing that down here as well. All right, so I've got my stroke. I can put that on there, and I can do rounding, round join, so it's doing a rounded edge on my stroke. It's sharp here and then round here. Bevel, that's kind of the chopped off corner, right? Then I can also do dashes. Let's go back to minor join. Now I have dashes, and then the kind of a pill And I can offset that, like so. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, so let's see some interesting things that you can do with this. I'll get rid of my stroke there, and I'll make this guy a little bit smaller. And under this contents, or out next to this contents here, have a menu that I can use. So I can add an ellipse. Let's say, and if I do that, I can change the position of it out here, but it's not doing anything. I would need to fill it. So I can copy that, fill, and I've got a group here. Let's see, put that there. Okay, so now I've filled my shape layer, my new ellipse shape layer, and it interacts with this other guy. And if I change the fill, then I can interact again, but it's also looking down through the stack here. So I would need to change where my rectangle is if I want it to be in front or behind, like that. I can also group things. So, well, maybe we'll get to group in just a minute, because there's some extra fun stuff we can do with that. All right, so I'll get rid of those guys, and let's do a merge paths, okay? So I'm going to create, or just duplicate this rectangle and make it smaller, like that, and set it to the side. So I have a rectangle 2, rectangle 1, and I'm just going to, with my content selected, I'm going to do merge paths. And it also gave me a stroke and a fill, just in case, because previously when you used merge paths, it didn't give you a fill, and so you would probably end up just wondering why in the heck you couldn't see anything that was going on with your shape layer. So they made it a little more dummy proof, or Trent proof. So now, there we go, subtract. It is subtracting one rectangle from the other. All right, so with this guy here, he is being subtracted. Sorry, the big one is being subtracted from the small one. And we can easily switch that just by changing the order. Like that. Yes, ma'am.
Which method would be considered lighter, as far as like if you did the shape layer and you did the alpha track maps, or whichever map you wanted to use, inverted, which one is more efficient? Would it be this one or would it be the other way?
I think it is a use case.
It's a use case?
Yeah, so you can, what Mary's talking about is, let's just do like that. We'll call this one mat, like that. Yeah. And so we'll get rid of rectangle 2 here, and we'll get rid of rectangle 1 here. Okay, so now we have those guys, and this is the mat, and we want to cut that shape out of this. So I can do channel, set mat, and use that right there. I can invert it and turn it off like that. So this guy is being cut out of the other guy, right? And that is another thing you can do. I don't know if it's more, you're also talking about which is more render intensive, right? I don't think one is much more render intensive than the other. It's just what you're looking to do. So it could be that you want this guy living off by himself, and he because he lives by himself. You can parent him to other things and do other, work with it like just a normal layer, instead of it being part of this hierarchy here. Because if I take this whole thing and move it, then the whole thing goes with. Okay. Now you can use that scenario here and say, I want a pink circle. I'll hold Shift and Command. So I'm going to hold Shift and Option, right? And that makes sure that Shift is the one that makes sure that I'm scaling relative on X and Y, so it remains a circle. And if I do Command, it's going to scale around where I first clicked. Okay. So then I will reset my anchor point, put it in the center, and I want to cut one of these out of the other. Then I can use a track mat like that. I can use the set mat. Like that. And I can also combine them together under one content, under one shape layer roof. Okay. Now, what I can do if I have them both together here is I can add a stroke to this thing, all right? Like that. So now my shape has given me the option to change up how my stroke works. Now, if I do that with a set mat, it's not as easy to get that to happen. You could probably do it, but it's not as easy. And you'd have to use stroke or Vegas in order to get your dashes and stuff. So if I go to stroke here, I can add like that and change up my shape dynamically with this merge paths. So then, once I have that path merged, I can grab all of those guys like that. And actually not yet. I'm going to go group. I'll take those and drop them all in there. So that's my funky shape. And then I can add an ellipse. Here, and then I can do another merge paths like that and subtract the ellipse from there, and I still have my stroke. Like that. Of course, the ability to spin it around. Okay, so when I'm doing this in the shape layer, I'm giving myself probably a little more latitude for this kind of stuff than I would be getting if I were to use a track mat or a set mat. Okay, so if I were going to try and recreate this with this stroke with that method, let's just to see how easy it would be. So I'm just going to do a rough look at how that might be. Like that. And get rid of that stroke. I'll make it blue. And then stroke, and it needs masks apparently, and there's no mask on here. So I would have to maybe do a solid. And take the path here, copy that path. That cell is not very big. Let's see. Let's put another solid in. So I've copied my path. I'm going to go new mask and then paste that path on there. And then I would be able to do my stroke here. Let's go back and make that a pink stroke. Like that. So I'm approaching what I had before. But my spacing is going to be weird. I do have an offset or a beginning and end that I can use, but I cannot get exactly like I had previously. And then I can add another mask here. Probably I can do that circle. That all masks. So I've got that going on. I would just subtract like that. And if I wanted to get a dash, an actual good dash, then I would have to use Vegas to get that. And I might have to use each of the masks. So let's see, there, hardness. I still don't have my kind of hard edge. It's all rounded edges on these. I can change how many dashes I have and the length, and I can rotate them. Now, if you're going to try and rotate dashes around something, I recommend using Vegas, because Vegas is going to do all the math for you to make that happen. It's a little bit harder to do that in the shape layer, especially if you're trying to change your dash size and your gap size. It can start to look goofy, start to get half dashes and stuff like that. So Vegas will do that for you, but I would also need to add another, maybe add another guy here. Sorry. Let's try image contours. No, that does, I think it does the outside of the thing. Let's try one more piece. Like that. No. Alright, so we would do mask 1, and then duplicate it, and do mask 2. Yeah. So that there is a way to do that outside of shape layers, but you don't get the same results as you would in shape layers. All right. Now for some more fun stuff, because let's see, I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to show you some extra cool things that can happen with shape layers. So we can twist this. Make it look goofy, right? So we're getting some interesting stuff there, but we're also keeping our stroke on there and changing where these things exist in the layer stack. You're getting different different looks, right?
Interesting amoeba, sir.
Mm-hmm. And so something that's kind of cool is like, let's try a polygon here. And we can add a twist. Start to get some cool shapes like that. Kind of fireball kind of stuff, or like a saw. Do a bunch of points on there. All right, and then we can even do star. Get some interesting looks. Here's your fur ball.
Nice.
Right.
Dancing hairband.
Dancing hairball. And then
Why
he
still
would,
web it?
so we could change the angle. So it looks like he's actually a dancing fur ball. Let's see. Some interesting shape options. And then not only that, let's just get a totally different star here. And we can do pucker and bloat. So with your polystar, you have the inner control and the outer, inner radius and outer radius. And then we can put on pucker and bloat. And that does some interesting flower and starburst kind of things. You can do that with any shape layer. So if we did a ellipse here, pucker and bloat. Like that, right? And then some things like wiggle paths. If you want to get some crazy stuff going on, you can do corners. Let's zoom in on that. And it's based on time, so it's going to wiggle like so. You can change the phases, temporal and spatial. Change a random seed. So if you have two guys, they wiggle differently. I'll take this one and put him over here. Change the random seed like that, and they're different. We could even do a group here. Group. Put those two in, duplicate the group, change the random seed here, and the size. Oh, no, that's not what I want to change. I want to do this. It's the ellipse size. Like that, and then we'll do a merge paths. Subtract. Like that. Now I've got something like that. If you're doing a ringworm video, you can do that. And of course you can apply any effects to this that you would use otherwise, like let's do a
Bevel edges.
we could do bevel edges. Yep. Bevel alpha.
Bevel alpha.
I can do that. And I can do some blur stuff. that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That would have been good for your ISR on challenge.
Kind of looks like a hole. So that's a little bit of the wiggle path. And we also, yes.
Before you delete the wiggle path,
Uh-huh.
does it have what options are under the wiggle path as far as like, can you make it eventually slow to a stop?
I think so. So we could.
Or is that an expression thing?
I think all it is a keyframe
Okay.
situation. So I've got my lips here.
Do you want to smooth or stop?
I want it to sort of start erratic and then slowly become still.
All right, so we'll set the wiggle per second. Oh, it looks like it will do a hard corner there, or a hold frame. So let's see if we can do an expression. Looks like we can. Let's see if we can add a slider control and pick whip the slider control. Set the slider control to 5 and have it go to 0 like that. We want it to ease in, so we'll set an ease in keyframe. So one of them stopped. Let's see if we can get both of them to stop. That. So the way the expression, like it goes, maybe it, when it gets to 1, it kind of reboots itself a little bit, like it goes back the other direction. So maybe let's try and hold it at 1. Right there. Set a keyframe. Nope, does the same thing. So,
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
no, it's okay. It's okay. It's the interesting, or the way it works with time is interesting to know. Right. So it did go to 2.98 and just restarted itself. So let's see if we can get it to 2.98 and then hold it there like that.
Be back in a
Like
minute.
it still wants to keep going. Okay, see you in a minute.
Okay.
Oh, maybe we need to get there and then set it to 0. But that'll do a pop, doink. So we would just need to figure out what the math is on what,
Gotcha.
where it can go from what to what without making itself slow down and start up again.
Interesting.
So
Cool. Now this is an interesting shape. I like this shape. Kind of looks like rocks a little bit, or like something's broken maybe. So I want to take this moment to start the discussion on 3D stuff. There are other things that you can play around with in shape layers, like wiggle transform and zigzag. Do that on your own. right now, what we're going to do is flip over with our, I'm going to do Command K, pull up the options, the composition settings, and change over to the Cinema 4D renderer. Okay, I'm going to put a camera in, layer new camera, and I'm going to make this guy 3D. And when I do that, I get these options here, geometry and material. So with geometry, I'm not going to do a bevel yet. I'll just set this to like 40. And then if I twirl my camera, I'll just hit C to pull up my camera tool. You can see, you can kind of see that there's depth. If I add a light in here, parallel light, and then I'll duplicate it, and I'll move this one. That. Okay, so now we can see that we have some depth here on this thing. And not only do we have depth, we also have the opportunity to do a bevel. Like that. And I can, let's see. Can let this guy be animated.
I have a silly question.
What?
Do you have to have Cinema 4D to make the 3D work? I know how to do the
You-
3D space.
You do not. Cinema 4D Lite comes with After Effects, and that's what you're doing this with. Cool. So you also have the ability to do things like you have a whole bunch of new stuff here. So you can add a, let's see, bevel color. Which is normal shades of once. Select the group. Okay, so what we would do is select, actually probably add a group like that and put all of this inside that group. And then we can add the bevel color. Like so. We can even, on this group, add a side color. So now we're doing Superman kind of things. And because we have the merge paths in there, we can have it grow and shrink like that. I could put it back on it as well. Also, if we'll do some more of this in a minute, but I have a ability to do reflections on here, so I'll put that in there and go to layer, environment layer, like that. And for my bevel here, group. Let's see, I'll add bevel reflection intensity. Like that. Okay, so now if I rotate this guy, just use an expression again, 360 divided by 3 times time. Go half res. Renders a little faster.
Turn the air down.
Yes! Thank you. brand new flip flops, so easy breezy in here right now. Okay, so you can see the reflections happening on the edge there. All right, any questions right now?
I guess I don't really understand I got it.
The
but I don't
3D
really
version of it? Or what?
The 3D version with the light environment? Like, I don't really understand it. I saw how you did it, but I don't really.
Okay, so let me see if I can help you understand. There is a Cinema 4D renderer that works inside After Effects.
Right.
Okay, it's taking the shape and or text. We'll do text as well, and it's just extruding and maybe adding a bevel.
Yes.
Okay, then you can also do surfacing. Very simple material. Okay, and the material is like whether or not it gives you the color. So with metal or reflection, things like that. It doesn't have bumps. It doesn't have displacements. It just has really simple reflection and color or diffuse information. Right.
Okay.
But in order to get a reflection of an environment in there, let's add something else. Let's see. So you can see that the reflection is changing on the bevel, but in order to get that to happen, you have to turn your layer into an environment layer. And really all it does is just give you a spherical image map of whatever you put in there. Whether it's seamless or not, it'll just say, oh, I'm going to wrap this as the environment. Okay? So the way to make that happen is to do environment layer like that.
So what do you apply the environment layer on?
You just drop it into the scene and call it or designate it as an environment layer.
So,
and then inside the materials here, it applies to that right there. These three pieces. So if I do 100% reflection,
You just don't see the sphere.
yeah, you
right.
don't.
So if I wanted to use that as compositing, to composite, let's say that or something else into an actual real life image, in order to match the lighting, how would I apply the environment layer?
In order to get real life lighting, you might need to do that inside of Cinema 4D Lite.
Okay.
Even still, I'm not sure if it'll give you the full HDR.
Yeah.
It may be just a representation of the HDR. So if I take this out, then it doesn't have any lighting at all, right? But if I turn the lights on and turn this off, so it's just using the lights now. I can use the lights and the environment or just the environment. I'm not positive it's going to give you exactly what you're looking for.
Okay.
I wish I had a real world example I could give you. But what you're doing really is, let's just turn off the reflection and see anyway. Okay, so that is lighting based on the environment map.
Okay.
Okay, but it is not giving you any shadows, really. So let's see if cast shadows, if that does anything. And diffuse, no. Specular, metal. Metal is the coloring and how I think it has to do a little bit with what happens in the reflections, yeah. So this, with metal all the way down, is taking the information from the environment. So if the environment layer, if I change this out with the Milky Way layer, you can see it's got a lot of pinks and blues. It's giving me pinks and blues in there.
Right.
So it's not technically lighting it. It is adding reflection into it and giving you what that would look like. Right. So it's not an HDR light.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. Good question. Well, if anybody else have any info about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would same thing. Probably need to go into C4D.
Yeah. And I think I've tried a little bit of HDR or like reflectance or sky mapping inside Cinema 4D and it C4D Lite, and it doesn't give me what I expect to get.
Okay.
I think. I haven't done it in a while, but I think it's necessary to have the full version of Cinema 4D to do that. Speaking of which, Cinema 4D has gone to a subscription-only model. No, not only. You can purchase the program outright, but you don't get upgrades if you do that. You can, however, do a very, very inexpensive subscription model now. It's like beans compared to what it was previously. You're on the subscription?
Huh?
You're on the subscription?
Yes.
How much did your price change in the last 2 months?
It went up.
Went up?
It went up because the service agreement used to be $650 a year, and now with I don't know exactly because with Redshift it now it's $1,000 a year.
Okay.
But my Redshift a year, I don't even remember what that was.
Okay.
Per year to keep up, I would have to add. I don't have a correct answer for you, but
Okay.
it went up. But it may be roughly the same if you do the cinema and the Redshift.
Yeah.
But I just don't remember the numbers.
Okay.
I can't tell you. I do know that the Redshift and Cinema 4D was roughly $1,000.
Okay.
A year per year.
Well, we were going to upgrade 2 licenses here.
Yeah.
And it was going to be crazy expensive.
Yeah.
And then we went with subscription for 2 licenses, and it was less than half of what it was going to be to just upgrade 2. So, the CFO came and like almost gave me a hug. It was pretty good, pretty exciting. All right. So we've seen how the shape layers you can map and mask inside shape layers. You can do that with multiple things, but now we're gonna do one more bit of this, so you can see a little bit more exciting thing about shape layers. I'm just gonna delete all this stuff, and we'll just start with an outlined rectangle. That. And here, maybe let's do 600 by 600. All right, so now let's look at the repeater. So when you first stick a repeater on your shape layer, you automatically get 100 pixel offset. Okay, so you're duplicating, you get 3 copies and 100 pixel offset. So if I can continue to add copies or have no copies, like that. I can also offset my copies, so they're just 1 unit. I have units 1, 2, and 3, and if I offset -1, then I have units 0, 1, and 2. Make sense? So there's, let's get, like this. All right. So I have units 1, 2, and 3. If I offset 1 to the negative, I have units 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so I can add 3 back by adding another iteration, another copy. All right, and if I want to change on the Y, I can change on the Y. Okay, so I'm making copies and doing offsets via the repeater. Okay, and I have the ability to change my anchor point. That really comes into play when I change my rotation. So if I set this back at 0, my rotation happens around each of their center points. And I can get some interesting looks by maybe not offsetting quite as much. And rotating a little. I'm getting a spirograph kind of look, right? Cool. And I can change scale as well, so that my boxes go off to they're making like a conical shape a little bit. Change my opacity. That, and I can even offset. Okay. So if I take my offset, a keyframe here, and go reverse like that.
Oh, yeah.
Now I have me a transition. I'll just do an easy ease on there.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very simple, very easy. Now, I say it's simple and easy. That really just accidentally happened. If I had done something just a little bit different, it would have gone south on me. But so it looks like I have a little parallax here because of the moving the position of that first, of the offset, the position of the repeater. So now,
BJ looped all day long.
yeah, man, BJ loops. And I also have the ability to do opacity on the start as well. Soften it in a little bit. And if I don't do quite as much on the offset like that, but I add a bunch of copies, I can make it a little more of a production. I would need to offset some more. Alright, so got my repeater working. And something that I think is really cool with repeaters is you can, I'm just going to delete that one and I'll create a box here like that. And we're going to double up repeaters. So repeater 1, I'm going to have my box go off like this. Do a bunch of copies like that, and then I can duplicate that repeater. Instead of going off to the right on the Y, I can go, sorry, on the X, I can go on the Y. Okay, so now I have taken this one shape layer and made a grid here. Okay, it's what's the word I heard today? It's not procedural. It is starts with a P. You know what I'm talking about? So if I change one box, I change all the boxes. I change the color on this one. I change the color on all of them. Okay? Parametric. That's what it is. Parametric. Boing, boing, boing. All right. I can pull this repeater out of here like that, and do something else here. So I can add, let's say, an ellipse. Okay. So I'm quote unquote parametric. I'm changing this one shape here, and it's going through all of the different iterations. I can, in this rectangle, add a twist. And the same twist happens on all of the copies the same, okay? Now I can move that twist here, I think out of there, and maybe if I group these, this is an experiment. Maybe it doesn't work like that. Maybe I would need to.
Is the twist visible on the circle?
Say it again?
Twist visible on the circle?
I don't see the twist on the circle. Yeah, it is. So maybe if I.
Looks like they planted a garden of new potatoes,
Yes.
tomatoes.
Now, so I merged the paths and the repeaters together, and now the twist is happening on the whole shebang. Again, I'm parametric, so if I change that and that, then so I'm kind of working on like a little bit of a wavy flag here, right? Okay. Anytime I create some shape layer and it is self-contained, I can make it 3D. All I need to do is just add my geometry. And, you know, I can kind of make it look a little cartoony. That's not it. By adding a contents. side, like that. So kind of cartoony. And just for fun, like we weren't having a whole lot of fun previous to this, I can, on my repeater here, I can set this to 1. So if I'm going to offset my repeater, okay, this is position 1 here, all right? Position 1, position 2, position 3, position 4, okay? If I offset a whole number, this group here moves into the place of this group here, okay? Make sense?
Yes.
So if I move partial numbers, like 0.5, that would be somewhere in between, okay? Then I can use my formula here and say 1, which is one whole move from one place to the next place, divided by 1, that's over 1 second. I'll do times time, like that. And now, they're being offset. And something goofy is going on. I'm not exactly sure what's happening with that. But they should just be moving. Let's do a keyframe and see if that changes things. So it's moving. What I'm hoping to do, not sure if I'll be able to, is get it to follow that path, that curvature. I'm not sure I'll be able to do that. At any rate, you can see here that I am, let's do 10, let's do, okay, like that. So at any rate, I have a shape layer created, and it could be that it's having problems with the C4D renderer.
Yeah.
Maybe. Let's see if we turn that off.
Looks like Twirl's looking at your total shape and just getting,
Yeah. Turn that off and see what we get. Just for fun. Let's go to. Okay, so it's still being a little goofy. Now it could be that Twist is having a problem with where the center is located or something like that. I can.
Because the original is not on the center? Or the original anchor is not on the center?
I'm not positive.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff going on here. Let's get rid of that. All right, so I'm going to get rid of the twist and show you what this does. I don't know exactly why the twist is having problems. I'm going to get rid of that offset there, and we'll do our math again with 1 and 1 divided by 1 times time. Okay, so you see what it's doing. It's moving off in one direction. Okay, so it's just replacing over time. It's just replacing the next iteration. So with that in mind, if I want something to loop, I can, with this first repeater, let's just make a bunch of copies, and I'm going to offset this -5. Okay, so now T is going to be my offset value, on the X. Okay, the X part doesn't matter, but that's just what we're thinking of it right now. And I want T to repeat itself. So every time it gets to 1, I want it to loop back to 0 and start over again. Right? So it goes from 0 to 1 and then jumps back from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1. So it's going to look like it's just a continuous flow of squares. Right? But I need to use my offset as well. So this is where our friend modulus comes in. Modulus is just when you get to a remainder, start over at 0. It's doing a little bit of a division. When you get to a remainder, start over at 0. Okay? And then I'm going to do plus value. And that's just whatever number is here, I'm adding it back to the end of the expression. So now, when it gets to 1, it loops back from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1. So it looks like I have an infinite row of rectangle squares, whatever. And you can see here, watch that number there. So I've offset -5. Therefore, I start at -5. And as I play through here, it counts down from -5 to -4 and then starts back at -5. Okay, so it's doing the math for me to start that back over and give me that infinite look. But really, it's only one square that's been repeated out and repeated down. Okay. Now let's see what that looks like in 3D space.
That's clever.
Okay, I'll put a light on there. Another one. Oh, I don't even have it extruded.
Oh, you're on classic 3D.
Yeah, so now I go 740. Boop. Boop. Extruded. That. It still has my extra stuff on it, I think. Extra side color. Okay, so let's pull the camera in and then do our RAM preview. So we'll go back to 1. There we go.
That is so cool.
Now we have our boxes going. Right? Zoom in on those guys. Half res. Go a little faster. All right. Now we have a logo. And this logo has been created with a few different elements. I have this here, and outline. Can't see it right now, but it's there, like that. And have a little grid that sits on top of this box here, like that. The box is a shape layer, and the grid is just a 3D. It's a 2D layer, 2.5D, we'll say, since it doesn't have any depth. And then I have some elements like this, where I've used trim paths on an ellipse, like that, okay? And I just have a little bit of an expression, you've seen that before, to make this guy twirl around, okay? Now a couple of more of those, like that. They all twirl like so. And then I have two of these guys that come from, on my camera move, they come from off behind everything. Everything builds like that, okay? So the camera and the null all have everything spin and turn and then land.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
So camera aperture.
So say it again. Camera aperture? Yeah, a little bit.
How they do on the cell phone commercials.
All right, so now what you can do once you have animated these things easily, because you're just using shape layers and not causing yourself a whole lot of problems with your render times, you're gonna change your renderer to Cinema 4D. Now I've already set up some bevels and things like that, as well as some reflections and I've got two and an abstract background here. And now we're just going to look at what this guy does. So that's the background, and I've used the CC environment, I think is what I used. To have that spherical image map as my background environment. Alright, so now here we go.
Shape layers in After Effects.
Yep. You didn't even know.
It's amazing. Cinema 4 what?
Well, so just to kind of do a little bit of, I don't know, maybe this will be fun. We'll see. Anybody remember the game Zaxxon?
Party?
Zaxxon was a Atari or ColecoVision or something like that. And it looks like
Sorry, I missed the train on
so. You're flying kind of, it's isometric, and you're kind of flying sideways on with your jet, and your jet has to go up and down and avoid targets and blow stuff up. You do?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we have a little bit of time to do this. I was going to look at maybe trying to create this a little bit, see if we can do this with our shape layers. Okay. So let's just pick something to create. Maybe we create the ground plane first. And let's just go back to classic 3D to start with. And double click here to put that in. I'm just going going to make this 1920 by 1080 because I think that fits the screen better. And so this is going to be width. We'll just do like 3000 and 720 is good. This will be our ground. And then we're going to need maybe an image to go on the ground. Let's do something goofy with fractal noise. So I'll pre-compose the ground and go in here and go 3000 by 720. I think. Looks like that's got it encompassed in there. And we will add, maybe duplicate this and do a fractal noise like that. Nope, not noise, a fractal noise. There we go. We'll make it max and block. Complexity will be low and sub off like that. And then, hey, we can do HDR results. That's pretty good. Now I'll put a mosaic on here. Try and match that. We want sharp colors, and we're just going to do brightness and contrast here until we get a little bit of a pattern. And then we'll do a tritone. The mids will be white. And we'll do the last one, I think, will be a stylize. We'll do like a posterize. There we go. So we can increase if we want to, just to get a little bit of blocky shapes there. And tint those shapes. Purple, of course. Oh, and the ground is blue. Maybe not that blue. Better? Alright, spending too much time on this. Go back to our Zaxxon here. We have our ground layer. And we have some walls. So really, those are just going to be rectangles and rectangles, right? So I need a wall like that. And let's see, we'll do a little bit of shape layer magic. Do a repeater. And we're just going to do 2 copies. And want to offset that. I want to offset this. So watch what happens when I change the position. Is that it? Because I want to change the position of this guy and have it repeat out to the opposite side. I think I need to do a negative scale. There we go. Okay, so see what it's doing there. That. Okay. And then we'll call this columns. And the next thing we'll do is when my ship needs to fly through something, like over the wall, through the hole, it will need to go like this. So then I'll add a little cutout like that. And this is going to be wall, and so the wall is going to extrude away from me and the columns will extrude. I'll turn them and they'll extrude down. Okay? So the columns are going to go
Columns are going to extrude
like
down.
that. The columns are going to go like that and they'll extrude. Okay? So they're going to start at the top and go down to the ground. And the wall is tall to the ground and it's going to extrude just a little bit that way. Make sense? Not yet?
Yes, when it's turned. When it's turned.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So there's wall number one. And we'll just duplicate it, call it wall number two, and flip it like that. And now we can actually probably start putting the level together. So there's my camera, and my camera is going to go turn like that. And then it'll be isometric. You know, let's do a null instead. Make the null 3D. Parent the camera to the null. And rotate the null. But I want to see the ground as well. Okay, so there we go, like that. And the camera is going to be offset. I'll go way back in space and then zoom in. Like so. All right. So now there are columns right there, and it's time to put them in place. Walls. So I'll take my columns and they need to rotate like that. And pick them up away. That, and the wall needs to go this way, so 90, and then it needs to go like that, but that's the wrong way, so we'll go 90 this way, change the anchor point. Okay, so that's on the ground, a little tall actually, huh? Alright, so there's wall 1 and wall 2. That, and now let's go to our C4D renderer and see if we can extrude some of this. So, columns. We'll go extrude, so they're extruding up. I need to flip them. That. Too tall. There we go. And let's just put a light in there for fun, so we can see what's going on. Alright. And the wall, we're going to extrude this. That. Copy that extrusion like that. Duplicate the columns for wall 2. You guys bored yet?
Never. Only boring people.
Oh yeah, I like that. Okay,
Cool.
we can even make another wall like that. Wrong way. Bring it down here. Like
Yeah.
that.
Since,
Sir.
Since the floor has a fractal noise thing going on, can you still extrude it? Or
No.
okay.
So in order to make that happen, what I'll do is
Okay.
I can copy the ground and paste it. Oh. Copy the ground. Paste it in here like that. And set all of the position, everything like that. And then extrude that. And we'll put another light in here. See if we can add a little extra.
So extruding the whole thing?
Say that again, Mary.
It's extruding the whole thing?
So I extruded only this ground layer, and it's sitting underneath that 2D layer. Okay. So now I have my null object that does all my movement for me, because I'm only going left to right on here like that.
It's looking solid.
Haha. Well played, sir.
Thank you.
You're gonna put the.
You want a spaceship in there?
I was gonna ask.
You tell me. You say it.
Oh, I was gonna say, are you gonna put the wiggle on there like how we did for the circle to get the shape?
So you're talking about this shape here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what I would do is for the ground, I can. Oh no, not there. I can add that wiggle paths. You like that? Big corner. And then I'll take that off like that. Okay, so what does it do with the ground? Okay, so the ground is in a weird spot. Now I'm going to take this guy, scale him down where he's inside basically the edges of the ground, and then I'm going to copy like that. And the only concern I have is what happens when I move it to my ground layer. Is it going to keep the same
You could
is it going to keep the same edges? Because I paste it in here. Yes, sir.
duplicate the extruded one, remove the extrude, and use
Then
it as
use
a
it
track
as a-
map.
Yep, okay. That's good. Duplicate. No extrude. Oh no. No track nets in the Cinema 4D renderer.
Boom, boom, boom.
Oh snap! So, I'll go back here, paste in there, like that, and let's see if I ground that, and if I do a stencil alpha, like that. So it cut it, but it didn't cut it correctly. Let's see what it looks like down here. That is 90. So let's go back here and do, instead of stencil alpha, let's do set map. I can go up here, set map. Like that. Still looks goofy. I wonder what that is. Because it's not catching this area here correctly, I don't think. And I think that is because of the scale of the composition. Okay, so that 600. I feel like I'm going in circles here on this, and I don't need to. Wonder if I can do a set map. All right, that is a problem to be solved. Oh, let's just undo.
Mucho grande problemo.
I believe it can be solved, but
Let's solve it.
we will solve it another time, I think.
Is the whole percentages off?
No, it has to do with how shape layers are seen in a composition. Because a shape layer is expected that its boundaries are the boundaries of the composition.
Yes.
So if you have a solid, the solid's boundaries are only as big as the solid. So if it's 50 by 50, it's only 50 by 50. If a shape layer is 50 by 50, its boundaries are still the boundaries of the composition. Okay? So when you, let's see, do classic 3D. If you have a shape layer like this, and you have a solid like this, then you do a set map, the shape layer, then it looks at the boundaries of the composition and applies the shape layer it applies the shape layer mat to the solid based on the boundaries of the composition. So if my solid is a different size, got it. I can do it, I promise. My solid is 600 by 600. See what it does. So it takes the shape layer and squeezes it into that size. It says the shape layer is in an area this big, and I'm going to put it in an area this big. I'm going to squeeze it into an area this big. All right? So my if I make comp size, then the shape layer cuts out based on the fact that they are equal, meaning that the solid is 1920 by 1080, and the boundaries of the composition are 1920 by 1080. Okay, so it's saying when I refer to the shape layer, I refer to the shape layer inside the boundaries of the composition.
Makes sense.
Right?
That makes sense.
Not I refer to the shape layer as whatever size the shape layer is. I refer to the shape layer as in reference to the boundaries of the composition.
Yes. It makes sense.
Okay?
That makes sense.
If you think about it like pre-comping, like if this were a solid and I pre-comped it inside a 1920 by 1080, that's exactly the same result as you get if you put a non-full frame shape layer inside here. Okay. I understand. No, I've been working on this one for years now. I've been working on this one for years. So it treats the shape layer as if it were pre-comped.
Yes.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Therefore, I think I got rid of all of my I got rid of all my effects on that one instead of just the set map. Okay. All right. So we're not going to do we're not going to do the cut on that. We're just going to do the extrude for this exercise.
So maybe if you did want to do that, could you, instead of starting with a rectangle to begin with, you could do a Bezier shape
Mm-hmm.
and just draw a squiggly shape, and then that way you're copying the whole shape.
Yeah, the big deal is that whatever shape you are using to cut need to have the same boundaries. Need to have the same frame size. Otherwise, it's squeezing or morphing, whatever. Okay. At any rate, this is our cool game that we created. There we go.
It'll be a classic.
Now we're flying our spaceship through. We could add our little oil tanks or whatever. We could add fences and force fields and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And if we need to change the wall shape,
We can add 3-headed rabbits.
3-headed rabbits, yes, we could add those. So we can do that. We could also animate these so that they raise and lower, whatever. And there you go. And then we could create a little spaceship and fly it around in there. All right, last thing is text. Okay, so we talked about text last time. And so we're going to try and recreate this right here. Is that you? We're going to try and recreate this right here. So the problem is with Cinema 4D Lite inside After Effects, the renderer, that I cannot use a matte inside here. So if I were to create here like this and type in space, and I want to cut that that piece out here, I can just make a mask, come in like that, subtract, okay, I'm gold, right? But with another way to do it, I'll show you another way to do it. So I'll select that, and that. Just want to make it a little cleaner. All right. So another way to do this is to use a track map. Okay, so I can create a rectangle, and I'll disable my mask here and use a track map. Alpha inverted. That. Okay, so there we go. We're good again, but I cannot do that with C4D Lite and have it extrude. Okay, so it got rid of, you can see it got rid of my track mat on there once I made it 3D. So how in the world am I supposed to do this? I can't use set mat because that is one of the effects that don't work with C4D Lite. You can see this: blending modes, track mats, layer styles, masks and effects on, continuously rasterized, text and shapes, collapse 3D compositions. Okay. but we still want to use this. So how do we do that? I'm going to, say again? Yeah, I'm going to use the, let's go back to classic so I can get rid of some of this stuff going on. And I will create shapes from text. Okay. So now I don't want that mask here or here. Under my contents, I have all of these letters, right? So that just means if I want to put an extrude on this, and I want it to work out where I can actually do the masking, I can use merge paths. Okay. So here I'll hit a group like that. Put all those in the group. I'm going to add a rectangle. Actually, instead of the rectangle, I'm going to convert it to a path. Let's see, maybe I can just add a path. So we do add path, and then paste from my mask. That did not work as planned.
It's 'cause we're watching.
Yep, so I'm just going to go in here like this. With my new rectangle, like that. And I'll just make it work here. That. And merge paths with a subtract. And it looks like something exciting happened. So let's do another group. Oh, you know what I need to do? You know. I need to merge paths in the group. So I use the merge paths on the group to create one shape back out of all those other shapes. And once I have that one shape out of all those other shapes, I can then merge paths again and subtract the rectangle. Okay?
Nice.
So now that I've done that,
The masking does work in Cinema 4D, you just have to track it, right?
the masking, technically masking doesn't work with the Cinema 4D renderer.
Oh, okay.
In order to make the masking, quote unquote, happen, you need to use shape layers with merge paths in order to get the subtraction out of that rasterized or the vectorized shape. Okay.
Makes sense.
So now I can do a little, actually I did a little rotation, but it's not 3D. All right, and then add a light and duplicate a light. That. And this guy. See how it's telling me down here I need to change the renderer? If I just click that, it sends me to there. Now I can add my geometry. Bevel in there. That.
Who needs Max when you have Max?
Okay, so now we're back to this. We're back to this situation where we need to do another full group. So I'll group all of them together like that, and then for
Love
this,
this Love the space in the space.
Yeah. There's a little bit of space in there. So now I can do another color. I did that, didn't I? There we go. Why did that not work? There we go. So my fill was outside here, and therefore it was filling the entire thing. Let's get back to my favorite little pink color there. And I think we need a bevel, a little bigger bevel, and we'll make it blue, maybe. Now, we got this guy where we can animate through it. Now, if we were going to try to move these letters in one at a time to build this in from letters to word, we wouldn't be able to use, like we did last time, the text animators. Okay, so the reason is because I have used I've exploded the letters out, and I've used merge paths to cut with the map, right? With the merge paths. Therefore, everything is a solid. Everything is a group. If I want them individually, I just need to select this, duplicate it enough times for my letters, and then get rid of all but whatever letter I want on that layer. Okay? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? No? Mary? So I would just duplicate, and then inside my group, I would get rid of each individual letter like that. Okay? And then I can, if I
Sorry about that. I actually didn't quite catch what you said. My bad.
it's okay. So that's why I'm explaining it.
So that's if you're wanting to animate it character by character
Okay.
instead of the whole word.
All right. So then the next letter would be P. Go in here and delete everything but the P. And set the, like we did our anchor point earlier with Option Command Home. And that one can animate in separately. All right. Okay. Now, I'm glad you guys are here for this. Thank you very much for joining us at the After Effects user group. Please, it is way better to be involved in person because you can ask questions and all that. Join the Facebook group, subscribe, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.